Exactly 8 hours, 45 minutes, and 12 seconds into Bloober's Silent Hill 2, James walks out onto the streets of West South Vale. It's dark, it's raining, it's silent. Not 2 steps forward onto the concrete. This happens. It was the moment the Silent Hill 2 remake lost me. Let me explain. On its own, this moment isn't really anything. An observation of a trope. A cheap jump scare. A nitpick. Nothing more. It's hardly the thing to point to when saying that the Silent Hill 2 remake is lesser than the original. But it's also not the only time something like this happens. It's the middle of the running theme from Bloober's attempt to, let's say, remix the horror of Silent Hill into something less ethereal, less atmospheric, less opaque. In other words, the horror of Silent Hill had changed for the worse. So, even though there were plenty of things Bloober did with Silent Hill 2 that's worth all the praise it's getting, it was this moment that solidified that when it comes to the aesthetic of horror, the remake just can't compare with the original. Behind the fog of an up-res Silent Hill, it's still just a Bloober Team game at its core. In my restless dreams, I see that video. Save room. I'm here, waiting for you.
Are you taping again? Come on.
I want to be clear, there are certainly things to like about the Silent Hill 2 remake. There's the same dense fog that licks itself onto the wet streets like a veil from the suburban macabre. Or the use of red that shines through the blacker-than-black corridors like some hellish siren. Where moments like this, where Pyramid Head stands in the impossible bath of a demonic glow, overwhelms us with paralyzing fear. It's a moment so striking that even my friend, who's never played a Silent Hill game, texted me about it. Basically, there's a lot of good stuff like this on offer. But when I think about the remake, it's not the commendable additions that I go back to. It's this. The streetlight, indicative of the way the game treats its horror. For the purposes of this video, we can define moments like this as a blooberism, a technique used to undermine atmospheric or psychological horror through the use of a vapid trope, resulting in ineffective horror. Silent Hill 2 is wrought with these moments, infecting its core nature of the surreal with a reductive version of itself, trading the subtlety of Y2K anxieties for trivial 4K tropes. The result is a game less about moody presentation and more about superficiality. It's unnecessary. It's bombastic. It's cheap. In short, Bloober Team doesn't trust itself enough to scare you. And that's how these moments scattered throughout the game feel, undermining the hard work done at recapturing near palpable atmosphere. Sometimes it's a light going out. Sometimes it's the breeze meant to startle when entering an unlocked room. Other times it's the wind beginning to roar, signaling the beginning of a sequence that, in essence, says, it's time to be scared now. But often, it's the sound of a passageway closing behind you that quickly becomes the expected rug pull. The technique is all the same. A scripted scare triggered when James enters beyond a certain threshold. It's nothing new for Bloober, and the result is always a horror that's worse for wear. Whatever shape it takes, cliched jump scares like these start to lose their effect the more they happen. A trick we can predict and become numb to. It's the baby running into the wall from Layers of Fear all over again. This technique stands as a direct contrast to the original Silent Hill 2. While the original certainly had its share of jump scares, I'm thinking specifically about the bathroom stall from Toluca Prison, and maybe the lying figures that wiggle out from beneath cars. They were often the exception to the rule. In the remake, they are routine, forefronted around most corners with hidden enemies meant to try and catch James off guard, to startle with an unexpected strike. Pretty quickly though, you can start to exploit that trick by peeking around corners with the new third-person camera. The result is that even the cheap scares lose their effect altogether. And it happens pretty fast. So, even though critiques of individual moments like this could be seen as nitpicks, compounded over time, they become norms that deconstruct Silent Hill's horror. As far as the remake goes, you can point to the horror and see, really, there's nothing all that scary about it at all. Combat is equally another huge point of contention. In the marketing for the remake, Bloober team advertised the remake's combat as fixed and improved from the original, something meant to be corrected. Let's think about the original Silent Hill 2 for just a moment. Even though tank controls and lock-on, stiff aiming are seen as antiquated and a blemish by Bloober and many modern gaming fans, I'd argue that hardware limitations and restraints are actually key to how we experience the horror in Silent Hill 2. While Team Silent certainly didn't approach the design of the original game with the intent of making bad combat, the feeling of being powerless, of being overwhelmed, of being constrained while in combat, are each thematically in line with both the genre and the way the talent of Silent Hill superimposes over James's psyche. On this, our own Jade King in their article on the remake's combat says that the original design of Silent Hill 2's combat stood to diametrically oppose that of Resident Evil's in its own subtle ways. That it was less about frenetic action and more about instilling a sense of desperation, of emphasizing James's mental vulnerabilities through combat aimed at exploiting notions of security. In other words, friction and tension are part of the experience. This is just not how the remake operates. Sure, by modern standards, you may find it grating going into a menu to change equipment in the original game. But I'd argue being able to instantly change from a melee weapon to a gun in the remake is the version that's actually disruptive to the aesthetic experience. There's simply less tension in the immediate switch, less resistance to maintain a certain level of anxiety. Instead, it's replaced with immediate satisfaction, a means to calm panic in the middle of action. Now, any combat encounter can be more easily resolved because James can pull out a gun with the press of a single button. And while the streamlined change of sifting through a menu may seem small, in practice, it actually shortens the length of anxiety you feel during combat. Rather than building immersion, its function instead is to erode horror. The same goes for so-called enhancements like dodging and vaulting over ledges. Having access to more mobility while in combat ensures a level of distance and a level of safety you can, at best, keep, and at worst, exploit. Sure, encounters can still be frantic in their own right, and the original game can certainly be exploited in its own respective ways just the same. But simply, that it's now a different kind of tension. A frenetic pace that denotes something closer to action horror, more in line with games like The Last of Us, Resident Evil 3, or worse, Callisto Protocol. There's tension here, but the wrong kind of tension. A shift toward power, adrenaline, and just straight action. So-called immersion at the cost of insidious fear. Worse still, this direct approach to combat is echoed in the design of the main locations of the game. The apartments, hospital, and Prison were each reworked just enough to undermine atmospheric horror just the same. The Otherworld is made more explicit, foregoing the subtlety of drowned-out halls and molten interiors for dissonant rusted cages and exposed rebar. No longer are the environments echoes of a haunting descent. They are each an environment with tangible progression, a location admitted with the pop of a trophy, a Blooberism through and through. Compounded nitpicks like this continue across the board, adding to the notion of reductive horror. Everything is a touch more linear. Puzzles either follow sequential steps or have key items waiting outside or just within sight of your next objective, which, in a game that has been expanded upon to include more areas to prolong exploration, feels entirely antithetical to the thesis of the original game. If I know precisely where James needs to go next, then there's less disorientation when trying to figure out how to escape from whatever liminality James is currently stuck in. This is, after all, one of the major points of Silent Hill. Add to this that third-person camera, a change that is admittedly praised by original game director Masahi Tsuboyama, and suddenly the focus of exploration changes less from hypnotic presentation of the original game, less from eerie captivation, and more on the immediate surrounding and the mental map that is more easily constructed where you can identify where you've been and where to go next. Focus shifts from the infernal throbbing of being lost in halls and static to beelining drawers, cabinets, and breakable glass in search of loot. It's a constant break from real horror. We're no longer as present in the presentation of physical space, a design element unintentionally relieving anguish. Even with a 90s filter, artificial grain, or splatters of uncertain bile, there's just less aesthetic crunch in the remake. Horror isn't psychological anymore. It's tangible, repetitive, cheapened, changed. It's not the same Silent Hill. It's Bloober Team. Critiques like the streetlight popping, like the combat changes, like the streamlined design, might seem like nothing but a collection of nitpicks. In reality, it's an ideological practice that has actual ramifications for how people experience horror games. Because the original Silent Hill 2 isn't available to play on modern hardware, outside of emulation, it means that a trope-filled remake eventually sublimates over the original in the eyes of the modern gaming culture landscape. Esoteric texts are replaced with games that are, let's say, thematically diluted. Put plainly, there are less horror games that actually challenge us available on the AAA market. And with both the remake selling so well and rumors of more Silent Hill remakes on the way, it means that this kind of design philosophy from Bloober Team will most likely be present in subsequent titles. And it's not that the game itself is bad, but that for how psychological that early run of Silent Hill games were, it's looking like Bloober Team can't help but hit shy of the series' true horror. And that is the biggest shame of all. Okay, so there's a very easy counter-argument to all my criticism in this video. You might say, the remake isn't inferior to the original game. It's simply a different mode of telling the same story. One that might even do so pretty well in its own respective next-gen regard. After all, the surreal nature of Silent Hill 2 is captured mostly the same. It's just painted a little differently. Less remake, more remix. Whether or not you think the additional cinematics drag pace, makes things either less, more, or equally as explicit. Whether or not you love Akira Yamaoka's more jazzy renditions of the remake soundtrack, or miss the ethereal trip-hop influences from the original, we have to remember that Bloober's Silent Hill 2 is not a replacement for the original. It does not exist in isolation. It is a retelling, one that is in dialogue with its source material and can sit alongside the original to hold merit based on its own individual strengths. The problem is that the industry currently has a spiteful approach to the way it views older games, preferring profiting off remakes rather than preserving original games and allowing them to be played on updated hardware. As far as major publishers are concerned, older games are not viewed as texts we can revisit for insight and appreciation, but as antiquated products we can replace with shiny new ones. In a world where you get games like the Needless Horizon remaster, or the art direction sanitized Until Dawn remake, it's kind of crazy that Konami put together the Metal Gear Solid collection alongside a seemingly faithful remake of Snake Eater. But nothing for Silent Hill.
Sure is quiet here, huh?
Those games are still trapped on old hardware. In this regard, the Silent Hill 2 remake is actually a cry for better game preservation. Remakes should not replace old games. The reason why the streetlight popping out is such a frustrating linchpin really just stems from the presentation of the original game I held in such high regard that I think is just lacking from the remake. Even 23 years later, there's still not really a game that took such bold, opaque, psychological swings the way this game did. Pivoting from surreal moments of horror to something more trite just feels like a disservice to the game's original pitch, even if there's still respect for the source material in the surrounding design of the remake. Simply, there's just something lost in the transition to the design language of the modern standard. There's no shame in old design. Classics are classic for a reason, even if they may appear like antiques of the past. Friction and tension are good, especially in a survival horror game like Silent Hill. Even if we decide to update the telling of Silent Hill's horror through a modern lens, it also doesn't mean we can't appreciate the form of the original. In fact, we should embrace it, not view it as an object in need of fixing. And the sooner the industry learns to engage with games as texts from the past worth revisiting, the sooner we can continue taking new, bold, insidious, hellish, ethereal swings like those from Silent Hill 2. Until then, I'll be waiting for them in my special place. Let me know what you think of Bloober's Silent Hill 2 remake. Do you think it's as good as the original? And does the headcanon theory of the remake as a tormented time loop narrative change how you feel about the game? I'll be waiting for you down in the comments. Until next time, my name is Christian, this is Save Room, and we'll see you in the next one.